Well, the most wanted Al-Qaeda leader is now captured in a terror raid by U.S. security forces in Libya over the weekend. 49-year-old Anas al-Libi is believed to be the mastermind behind the 1998 bombings of our embassies in Kenya and Tanzania. 12 people were killed in those bombings. He was indicted in a New York federal court back in 2012. Americans, I should say, there were many more than that in total, over 200. KT McFarland joins me now, Fox News national security analyst, and Charles Cully Stimson is a former Deputy Assistant Secretary of Defense for Detainees and Senior Legal Fellow at the Heritage Foundation. Welcome to both of you. Obviously, this is very big news that we got over the weekend, a very significant capture of al-Libi. Cully, let me start with you on this. So a lot of questions about why his path, he was indicted in the Southern District of New York. Why does his path seem to be taking him to New York for his trial?
Good morning, Martha. Basically, this is finishing up unfinished business. He was indicted along with a lot of other people back in 2000. The trial actually finished in August of 2001. He was on the lam, and so now we have finally captured him. And unlike one other person who was involved in the East Africa Embassy bombings who's at Gitmo, there's really no classified information in this particular case. And so they'll just pull the old case off the shelf and try him in federal district court in New York.
Yeah. KT, obviously, this is a big fish and a big get. What does it tell us about the war on terror and how it's going?
Well, I think it tells us three things, Martha. First, the war on terror is not over. Al-Qaeda is not on the ropes, and this is another example of the fact that it is a worldwide war. The second thing, though, that is interesting is this is the first time since the bin Laden raid that the United States has put boots on the ground, both in Libya and in Somalia. And what that tells you is that the administration realizes Africa is the new place. That is the new theater. That is the new place to worry about. And then the third thing is, as you know, I was just in Egypt last week. This is a lot to do with Egypt. Why? Because Libya is on the Egyptian border. If Al-Qaeda sets up shop in eastern Libya, if Libya becomes a failed state, that gives them the launch pad to then move into Egypt. Muslim Brotherhood is already established in Egypt. What's going to happen to Egypt? Because as much as Somalia is important and Syria is important and Libya is important, they pale by comparison to Egypt. Egypt is the crown jewel in the Middle East.
Very interesting. So where do we go from here? You've got Boko Haram, you've got Al-Shabaab, you have all of these. And we have seen, to their credit, the administration put a lot of focus on Africa over the course of the last year, Cully.
That's right. And Al-Qaeda has metastasized. We go into Afghanistan and they disperse to Iraq. We go into Iraq and they come back to Afghanistan. They go back to their ancestral homeland in Yemen. They go back to East Africa and the Horn of Africa. And so, to KT's point, the war is not over. They are capable of splintering, and so we have a long way to go until we can take the reins of victory and call it a victory.
Let's get back to al-Libi specifically for a moment now. We see his car outside the house, or the spot where he was when he drove up after prayers. His son is there in this video. Maybe we can show some of this while we're talking about it. And he's describing, my father came home, they pulled up, they captured him right outside his home, which would lead one to believe that, he'd been living fairly comfortably and quite openly, KT.
Yeah, and this is the thing that's quite amazing, is that this guy obviously wasn't afraid, right? He's just living a normal urban life in downtown Tripoli. The other thing that's incredible to me is why we have not done the same thing for the man who was the self-admitted mastermind of the Benghazi attacks, Ahmed Khattala. He's sitting he proudly gives interviews to Reuters, to the New York Times, sitting poolside, sipping strawberry frappes in a luxury hotel in Benghazi. Hopefully, he's the next guy we go get.
Yeah, Cully, how about that? I mean, why do you think, it would appear that we might have known where this guy was for quite some time. He was very high on the list, and these were devastating bombings that, as you say, were unfinished business. So why now, do you think?
Look, it's always welcome news when you capture a high-value
Absolutely.
detainee. And quite frankly, two raids does not a strategy make. I don't think there's a real big strategy here. I think that they are reactive and not proactive in terms of a strategy in the region. But it's good that we're capturing him because, the drone strategy kills people. and you don't get to detain and interrogate people. You don't get any intelligence from people. And so I'm happy they're interrogating this guy.
And it brings me right to my next question, KT. What do we think that he may know? How valuable is he as a person to be interrogated on some ship right now in legal custody?
Well, hopefully we're getting a lot from him. We may or may not. But what he has talked about, as has the Al-Qaeda leader in Somalia, they have both commented publicly to Al-Qaeda that now that the war in Iraq is over, the war in Afghanistan is winding down, the fighters there can come back to their homelands. They can come fight jihad in northern Africa and eastern Africa. So they would have been the sort of linchpins, the recruiters, if you will, of the next theater of the war on terror.
All right. Very interesting. Thank you both for being here. We'll see you next time.
Thank you.
Thanks, Martha.